This video help on the booking and billing screens, we're going to be covering the room listing screen popover. Let's go ahead and open it. In the room listing popover, what we're doing is we're statusing the information for each individual room that you have, or hotel room, or in this case, if it's a VRBO, it would be a residence or whatever you're using, like a dwelling of some sort. And you would be adding them in the room add, which we'll be talking about in a minute. Let's go ahead and look at this screen. We have a room type to start with. In this case, it's a 1-bedroom king, a 2-bedroom, and so forth, like we looked at the other information on the prior screen. It shows the room numbers individually. Now, what's different about this screen is in the status. You're going to be seeing this when you're in the calendar, and we're going to pop over there in a second and look at this. When you have a status, it tells you what the current status of that room is. So if you're in the calendar and you're going to be adding some changes or whatever, you would change them by clicking on it and then adding that information, which would change this if you had to. Now, there is a room status that we showed you in the last screen where you can go in and you can change the status in that screen and add to or edit this information that's in this screen. In addition to that, if you look over here, you'll see that there's the room status date. This would be the date where this status changed. And this is important because as you add a booking or whatever, in this case, and I add the booking information, for example, if I click in there or tap and add a pending reservation, that would change the status where if somebody's looking at the room availability and they want to know if they can assign one, and you're not the same person that assigned that same thing, or you maybe are, and somebody else is looking at it, they would know not to use that room because it is a pending reservation, and they would have to pick from the other list. So let's pop over to the calendar and take a quick look at what we're having over there. Let's go up to the calendar and pop into that. And I'm going to go back to one that already existed. And this one is one of those ones I talked about, an expired appointment. This is actually from the 10th, and it was not shown as completed. So if I go into the record and look at it, you'll see it was not made completed, so it was showing up in the expired area. And let's go ahead and say continue here, or drop this, but we can drop it down. Now we're going to look at availability for the rooms. Here's the availability, the same thing we were just looking at on the other screen with everything listed in here. So if I'm actually setting up a calendar appointment for a room or a dwelling or a home or something like that that we have in the system, even maybe VRBO or whatever, we want to change the status as we access it. And here's one down here that shows a pending reservation. And the date was, of course, it's now behind that, but it is changed in this screen if you want to, and it updates in the back end of the application. And the same thing goes for the room assignment, which is the popover we just looked at. Now, you don't really kind of edit this stuff. What you're really looking at is to see, for example, when somebody is leaving and what time they're going to leave that particular apartment or whatever it is. And you can see if they're departed, these are all rooms that are now empty. And if you look at the statuses here, like arriving, this should be one that's coming in soon. And we're not editing in here because people can kind of mess things up if they do it in here. And there's no portal button to get you to the back end because this calendar is what they call a modal view. And what a modal view means is that you cannot just leave in the middle of this screen where you have it up there. You have to actually close it by tapping off the screen. And then up here, you have to always close from this area above. So let's go ahead and close it. And we go back in and we can see the status that we're at now. So let's pop back over to the booking screen. And if I did make a change, obviously, in the room listing, it would have been reflected here. And then I can also go into the portal and I can show the room itself with a picture that shows the actual room. And this is called the Add Room portal. We're going to be going through this a little bit more depth, but this is the listing of each one of the individual rooms as an individual record, which means you can use the find in this room, and you can also add a room in here. And what we will be doing is adding rooms when you set up your application initially to add each individual room, and then you can put a picture in for the room. And this can be viewed obviously in the different places in the application where you can see one picture of each room that if you wanted to show it to somebody, or in this case, if you tap in, you can actually replace the image, you can view it larger, or what you can do is export it if you wanted to send it in an email or something like that to somebody. Or the way I have this set up, you can actually print this screen or send it as a PDF. If somebody wanted to see what the room looked like and you put it into an email, you can actually export it as an email. Let's show you how you do that. You go down here and you say export, and then you have a choice. You can say how you want to export it. In this case, I could say in an email. I want to point out that during this video, as I'm doing it from Xcode, which is the application that writes the actual program they're reviewing. I didn't realize it, but in Xcode, in the simulator, I cannot click on email because Xcode doesn't support email as far as being able to send it. But if you do click on email, it's going to give you the ability to set up an email where the image that you see on this side will be added to the email. You can also do a save, and I'm not going to try to do that either because in Xcode it's going to mess it up and it'll crash on me. You have some other things you can do in here. You can use the layout as formatted. Now, when you're actually doing export, we'll cover that a little later in the one of the other video helps, and we'll talk about that. But you'll notice at the top of the screen, it always lists the screen that you're in, which is the application. In this case, is the Logic Manager Pro DB, and you can go to different types of exports in different formats that you want to go. And we'll get back to that later as we go through this. So I'm going to click Done and go back. In this record here, you would obviously add a room or all the rooms that you're going through, and we talked a little bit about that. When you get done with each room, you could create another new one if you wanted until you created all of them. Let's go ahead and go back to the screen over here. If you look in the room listing portal, one of the other things you'll notice is that on the room status date, it does use the calendar input, which I didn't cover, and I'll go back and just now say that. And you can also do things like go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and add an edit in the screen as you're going down through if you don't want to have to tap on things. And in some cases where these are kind of small, you can tap through and edit these, each one, if you have to. You can also tap on this to clear the screen, and then tap anywhere off the screen to close it. If you have any questions about how to use the room listing, go ahead and contact me, and we'll cover any questions you may have at the developer site, and you can do a chat there with us. Thank you.